Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we will be making some Guyanese tennis roll, well my version at least. So I'll just go ahead and show you how I get that done. We're going to be using some really simple ingredients. One of my absolute favorite ingredient to add to this is full of flavor pure Guyanese vanilla extract plus lemon. Why I like adding this is because it eliminates me having to add lemon juice to my mixture for the tennis roll, because Guyanese love to add a little bit, just a touch of lemon extract, which makes it taste so much better. So we will be using this today, and you can find this on the Full of Flavor website that I will link in the description box. So for this simple recipe, we will be needing some all-purpose flour, some butter, some of our Full of Flavor vanilla extract plus lemon, some sugar, some warm milk, some warm water, some salt, and last but not least, some yeast. So what we'll do is we'll get started by mixing the yeast and the sugar and the water. So we just need a little bit of warm water, just warm to the touch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add all of that to my mixing bowl. So I'm going to add my yeast. I am also going to add my sugar, and I will leave a description of the ingredients and the measurements in the description box. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix my sugar with the water so the sugar can dissolve just a little bit, and then we're going to add the yeast and we're going to mix all of that in, and then I'll be back so I can show you guys what that will look like. Alright guys, so what I'm doing is I'm just mixing the sugar into the warm water. Remember, you don't want the water to be too warm. You just want it to be warm to touch so that it can activate that yeast, because if it's too hot, it can kill the yeast. So you just want it just warm to the touch. Then I'm going to add that instant yeast onto that, and I am just going to give that a little bit of a stir, and we're going to leave this for about 10 minutes. Just until everything gets activated. And then while that is working, what I'm going to go ahead and do while that is getting activated, I'm going to go ahead and melt my butter in the microwave for about 30 seconds. I'm also going to go ahead and warm the milk for about 30 seconds as well. You don't want either of these to be too hot either, because it can kill the yeast. So I'm going to warm these in the microwave, and then I'll be back. Hi guys, so I am back, and this is what my mixture of the yeast, the sugar, and the warm water looks like. So that's perfect. You can see everything is already activated. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to add my melted butter to that. I am also going to add my warm milk. And I'm going to add that Full of Flavor vanilla extract plus lemon juice right in there. So I will leave a measurement in the description of that. And I am also going to be adding my salt. Yeah, try to get all of that in there. And then, last but not least, we'll just add the flour. Now, guys, for this recipe, I am going to be using my stand mixer. You can feel free to use your hands to mix this. It'll be the same results. But I'm always moving around in the kitchen, so I just prefer to use the stand mixer. But I'm going to be adding my all-purpose flour to the mixture now, and I'm going to let this knead for about 10 minutes. We're just gonna let all of this come together, and while this is kneading, you will see if you will need a little bit more flour. You probably won't. If you're hand kneading it, you want to avoid adding too much flour, because you want a nice, soft, and fluffy tennis roll, and you don't want it to be heavy. And adding a lot of flour can make your tennis roll a little bit heavy. So you want to be mindful of that. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to add this onto my stand mixer with the kneading hook. And then we will get this started for about 10 minutes. I will come back so I can show you what your dough should look like, and if you would need to add a little bit more flour. Of course, if it's too sticky, you'll add just a tad bit more flour, But if everything seems to be coming together pretty awesome and it's pulling away from the sides, then of course you will not need to add any more flour. So I'm just gonna let the mixer do its thing for about 10 minutes and then I'll be back. All right, guys, so I came back to show you what my dough looks like right now. So as you can see, it started pulling away from the sides and it's not really sticking. So I'm not gonna add any more flour. I'm just gonna let the mixer do its thing because I don't want my dough to be too heavy. And of course, when I'm rolling it out, I'm gonna be sprinkling a little more flour. So wherever I can eliminate adding too much flour, I am going to eliminate doing that. So when you're mixing it, with your hands, you just want to be mindful of that. So we're just going to let the mixer mix this for its time, and then you'll know when the dough is ready, when you can touch it and it doesn't stick to your hand. And I'll show you that as well. Hi guys, so I'm back and this is what the dough looks like. It is nice and smooth and it's soft. It's been about 10 minutes. So what I'll do next is I'll spray a bowl with some Pam and I'll cover this down for about 45 minutes. And then I'll be back to show you what that should look like so that it can double in size. It can rise and double in size. And let all that wonderful ingredients like sink into that dough to build up all that flavor and the gluten and everything. So this is what your dough should look like after 10 minutes, and it should be nice and soft to the touch. It should not stick to clean, dry hands. And then once it stops sticking to the sides of the bowl or your hands, you know your dough is ready. So you see I can touch that and nothing's sticking to my finger. So that's some lovely dough. And then we're just gonna cover this down with a tea towel for about 45 minutes. Hi guys, so it's been about 45 minutes and this is what my dough looks like. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm just going to punch the air out of the dough. As you can see, it is nice and soft. And I'm gonna roll this out into a log and I'm going to get about 9 pieces of this dough. 9 balls, so 9 tennis rolls out of this. So I'll roll them out, I'll measure them out because I like to be a little precise. And I'll be back to show you guys what they should look like. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making Salara, or some might call it red cake. So first we're going to be starting with the dough. I'm going to show you how I make my dough. The first thing we're going to need is 3/4 cup of warm water, and I'll place the measurements inside of the description. That way you know you can keep up with that. And then I'm going to add some brown sugar to the water, and then we're just going to mix that in so we can start the yeast solution. Okay, so now that we've mixed the sugar inside of the warm water, we're gonna just sprinkle about a tablespoon of instant yeast on that, and I'm going to mix that in. I'm gonna let this sit for 10 minutes so that it can get activated, and then I'll come back and I'll show you guys what I do next. Okay guys, so while we wait for the yeast to get all nice and activated with this water solution, I'm just gonna start my flour. I'm just gonna add some salt in there. Of course, I washed and dried my hands, and then I'm gonna add some butter in the salt, and I'm just gonna kind of break it all up together inside of the flour. Just kind of like put my fingers through it, and then once this is done and the yeast has finished activating, I'll come back and I'll show you guys what I do next so we can make our dough. After about 10 minutes, this is what your yeast should look like once it's activated. It kind of poofed up. So next, I'm going to add an egg, some coconut milk, and then I'm going to add the flour mixture that I made earlier. So I'm just going to add that all in there. Once I add all of this in there, I'll be putting this on my stand mixer so that it can knead for about 10 minutes so that everything comes together and the dough becomes nice and soft. I'll show you what that should look like after. So yeah, that's about it. We have everything all mixed in there, and now I'm just gonna clip this on the stand mixer so that can mix, and then I'll come back and show you guys how I make the filling. Okay, so while the dough is kneading, we're gonna try to make the filling. So for the filling, you'll need some shredded coconut, so basically some grated coconut. So I'm just gonna dump all of that in there, and then we're going to need some granulated sugar, some granulated white sugar. So we're gonna just pour that in there as well. And then for my favorite ingredient, we're gonna be using Full of Flavors spiced vanilla. So the reason I really like this is because I usually would have to add like cinnamon and nutmeg and all of that to my filling, but because this spiced vanilla extract is really good and it comes with almost everything that I would have added anyway, I don't need to add any of the extras. So I'm just gonna add about a tablespoon of this, and it's really, really good. And then I'm going to cook this down for about 5 minutes. After I think that it's cooked down enough, I'm gonna add some red food coloring to it just to give it that red color. And then I'll come back and show you guys what this will look like after it's cooked down. So after the coconut has cooked down about like this, I'll add some of my red food coloring. Now you don't want to add too much because that can cause it to taste bitter, as you would suppose. So I'm just going to add a little bit at a time till I get my desired color. Not going to add too much, so I'm going to mix that in and let that cook down just a little more. I'm going to let this cook down for like about 5 minutes. So after about 5 minutes, this is what my filling looks like. It's done. It smells really great. So I'm just going to take this off the heat. I'm just going to let that cool down, and then we're going to get back to the dough. So it's been 10 minutes and this is what my dough looks like. So I'm just going to cover this with a tea towel for about 45 minutes to an hour, just so it can double in size. Once that has doubled in size, I'll call you back to show you how I roll it out. So I just brought all the dough together, kind of like to make it into a ball. Now, of course, if your dough is sticky, you can add some more flour to it just so it can be workable, especially when you're kneading it, just so you can hold it and stuff. And if it doesn't stick to your after you've washed and dried your hands, then you know your dough is ready. If it doesn't stick to your hand. So I'm just going to cover this with a tea towel now. Those red spots are just from the food coloring from the filling. But yeah, I'm just going to cover this for 45 to an hour. Okay, so it's been about 45 minutes and this is what the dough looks like. It has most certainly doubled in size. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sprinkle some flour on the counter. We're going to separate this into 2 pieces because we're going to get 2 loaves of Salara out of this, and then we're going to roll them both out. Okay, so I'm going to divide the dough into 2 pieces. You can weigh your dough if you have like OCD, but this should be good for me. Just gonna divide it into 2 pieces. Some flour on the counter, and then I'm going to roll this out into a rectangular shape. So let me show you how we're gonna get that done, and then we're gonna fill that with the filling, and then I'll be back to show you what that will look like. Okay, so I rolled the dough out in kind of like a rectangular shape. It's not perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some egg whites and I'm just going to baste the corners. This will help sealing when we're folding it in. So I'm just putting it at the corners of the dough to basically be like a glue. And then we're going to add some of that filling on top of this. Now you can put how much ever you'd like. You don't want to add too much, or you don't want to roll the dough too thin, because if you roll the dough too thin, it will, the filling will kind of, it'll show. You'll see. So you just want to put enough to cover, because remember you have two doughs that you will have to fill. So you want to be mindful of that. So now I'm just going to spread this out so that most of it gets it. And then I'm going to roll this into a log, and we're gonna baste the top. I'm gonna beat this egg yolk, and then we're gonna baste the top with the egg yolk. And then we're just gonna put this in the oven for about 25 minutes. So you see, you wanna pull and roll. Okay guys, so this is what it looks like after we've rolled it out into the log. All I'm gonna do is tuck the ends under, and then I'm going to place this on a pan with parchment paper or cookie sheet. I'm just gonna place it at the top of the cookie sheet. And then once I place that on there, I'm going to baste this with some egg yolk. So I just mixed the egg yolk, and I'm just gonna baste the top of that, because once it goes into the oven, it'll give it some color. No, I am not doing a second sitting so it can rise again, because it will rise in the oven. So I don't need to leave it out for any longer. I'm just gonna place it in the oven at 350 degrees for about 20 to 25 minutes, just until it's nice and golden. And that's it. And I'm gonna come back and show you guys how I make this sugar syrup that sits on the top once this is finished in the oven. So I'm gonna place this in the oven at 350 degrees for about 25 minutes. Okay, so while the Salaras are baking in the oven, we're gonna make the sugar syrup that goes right on top. It's just 1 tablespoon of butter, a 1/4 cup of water, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. We're gonna cook this on the stove for like about 3 to 5 minutes, not too long. And then I'll show you what that will look like after that's cooked on the stove, and then we'll baste the Salaras as soon as they come out the oven. So after about 5 minutes, this is what your sugar syrup should look like. It'll start to like kind of crystallize in the corner of your pot. You don't want this to cook too long, because then it'll just turn into a lump of sugar. So this is fine for your sugar syrup. This is what it should look like. And now we're just waiting on the Salara to be done. We're gonna remove this off the heat. And then once the Salara is done, we're gonna baste the top of it with this sugar syrup. Okay guys, so it's been 25 minutes. They're out of the oven, fresh out of the oven. As you can see, they've risen up really high. So that's why I did not need to let it rise again before it went into the oven. Now I'm just gonna baste it with the sugar syrup. And that's about it. Some people like to sprinkle a little bit of sugar on the top. Some people think that this is just about sweet enough. But you know, you can have it whichever way you'd like. So thank you guys once again for watching my video. I'm gonna let this cool down, and then we're gonna cut into it once it is cool. So, and that's it. That is how you make my version of Salara, or some people call it red cake as well. And yeah, we're done. I'll leave a picture of what it'll look like on the inside at the end of the video. So thank you guys for watching. I hope everyone has a great day. I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of the sugar on top of one of them, just in case some people in my family is not really into that much sweet. But that's it, and we're all done. Have a great day, guys. Thank you for watching.